Hey, I'm Shaye Warner, and you are listening to the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast. Whether you are a seasoned rancher or just curious about the cattle world, this podcast dives into the stories, science, and strategies shaping the future of ranching. Let's get started and keep your herd ahead of the herd. Today, we are visiting with Shane White from Ceres Tag about how to maximize cow performance and sort out which cows are the most efficient. So this conversation is going to be a little different than previous conversations with the Ceres team, because they are rolling out some incredibly valuable features related to fertility. So I don't want to waste any more time with just me talking, and let's get right to the conversation with Shane, because you're sure to have your interest piqued in what we're about to talk about. All right, Shane. Well, first of all, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited to visit with you today because what we're going to talk about is more than exciting for the American rancher. So thanks for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. It's our pleasure.
Okay. So to kick us off, why are you passionate about ag technology?
That's a great question. So I believe that technology does allow the bridge for past generations and future generations to all exist on the ranch. In fact, it's one of our core competencies and our core beliefs is that it's our job as Ceres Tag to help future generations continue to increase profit so they can return to the ranch. Unfortunately, a lot of our generation had to leave the ranch to find off-ranch jobs, and I really want to change that parameter where we can increase the amount of money made on the ranch as it is, based upon maximizing each cow and allowing generations to come back, because we need these family operations to stay. There's too few ranchers as is, there's too few cows as is. We know that all too well based upon hooks disappearing in our part of the world. So we need to continue to defend the American rancher and the legacy of that, and data and automation is the best way we can do that.
All right. So before we dive into some of the really neat and upcoming things that Ceres has to offer in the ag tech space, can you remind us what Ceres Tag offers just in the broad scope?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a direct-to-satellite animal behavior automation platform. So we automate phenotypes, including pasture feed intake, grazing behavior, eating behavior, drinking behavior, so all kinds of different behavior metrics that come from cattle. We automate those off a low orbit satellite network and into a plethora of different management softwares. So being open access, we don't want to tell you what software to use the data in. We don't want to tell you exactly what ways you should use that data. We want to automate phenotypes that have never been possible, including pasture feed intake, which factors in grazing behavior by each animal every 6 hours, and the 10 kilometers square where that grazing behavior occurred, open source NRCS data of what type of forage is available there via either dry or wet season grass, because both of those have their own unique algorithm. And it's going to give you a 90% accurate dry matter intake estimation on every grazing cow around the world. So it allows us to finally benchmark the efficiency of the grazing cow to turn grass into economically relevant output.
Yeah, that dry matter intake or that pasture forage intake has really been what's set your company apart from others in the past. And when we talk about, earlier you talked about the importance of maximizing each cow. That's a big part of that.
Yes, ma'am, because it allows us to understand how much energy it takes to produce the economically relevant output we need. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we produce yearling bulls, bred heifers, or we're selling calves right out the ranch gate or retaining ownership. Understanding the efficiency of turning grass into that calf is really important, because we've taken bunk-based analyses and extrapolated them backwards for years, or we've counted on assumptions that are older than you and I both of every 1,300-pound cow eats the same amount of feed. Neither one of those are good, and we should use better data because it's now available. And that's really what is exciting for us, is that we are, like we say a lot, we're a data automation platform. We just want to provide people with better data. The number of ways they can use that to maximize their profit is really as endless as their imagination of how they can make better decisions. Ultimately, it's choosing cows that really do match our specific environment And that's a super important thought, because we don't have to believe that cows in western South Dakota behave the same as cows in western Texas or western Colorado or any of the number of other places that we have people using the devices and where your listeners would exist. We get to show them the efficiency of their cows in their environment. And that's super important because it allows them to select for animals that match their ranch. And that's where the profit really starts to show up.
Now, another key driver when we're looking at maximizing cows and making sure we are picking the right cows for our operation is that fertility component. And if I'm correct, you guys are releasing some new features that are really going to help ranchers dive into that.
Yes, absolutely. So that's why we're really excited to be here talking to you today. So we are launching the Ceres Generation 6 device that will have a suite of advanced reproductive capabilities. So those algorithms will be estrous alerts, calving alerts, and mounting scores. And we'll get into why we say each one of those in their own way. But the estrous alert is really the most exciting thing that we get to offer in the conversation you're talking about with fertility, because we're now automating the return to cyclicity metrics. Because if we know when a cow calved with data that was automated by the device, and we can see exactly when she returns to cyclicity, and we can start selecting for females that return to cyclicity in that 20 to 25 day range rather than the 40 to 45 day range, we know we can shrink our calving windows even further on some of these really extensively managed properties, which we all know based upon the few number of cows we have, everyone's going to be doing everything they can to manage cows for maximized profitability. But having that kind of data in their back pocket, again, without any infrastructure of any kind, allows them to really start to make some very cool decisions. And it allows breed associations to start to really dive into, know what is the real fertility metrics that matter. Yes, semen score, all of those things really matter. Those are really great predictors. But we've been trying to get at predicting this data for a long time, and now we can automate it on every female across the world without anybody having to worry about the data, because it shows up automatically to the software.
Mm-hmm. Now, with those estrus alerts, can that also be used as an indicator of when cows got bred, because they won't be coming back into estrus approximately? Will producers be able to use that in that form as well?
Yes, absolutely. So not only can they pair mounting scores from their bulls along with those estrus alerts, but then they can also see, no, that female had a 20.5 day average of her cycle, and it will be down to that kind of granularity, where this female has actually had a 22-day cycle. And we get to see that 22 days later, she didn't come back into heat. So we have a very good indication of when they've been bred, even in a multi-sire system. It also is going to allow us to at least see which bulls are working and which ones aren't. And when we spend as much money as we spend on bulls in this country every year, getting to see which bulls actually go and do their job in a timely manner is going to be very important information.
So while we're on the topic and we're talking natural service, do you want to share more about the mounting scores?
Yes, absolutely. So when we say mounting scores, it's going to be a score because, as we've learned in the data pretty extensively, not every cow gets bred exactly one time during the breeding season and exactly by one sire. So you can't definitively say, no, that sire bred that cow at that moment, unless we want to turn on the Bluetooth capabilities of the devices together themselves, which is still yet to be developed. But it does allow us to see, no, this bull mounted 100 cows in this day. Now, we don't know, is that the same cow 10 times and then 80 other cows, or is it the same cow 3 times? So it becomes a mounting score because it tells us which of our bulls are getting out and working. It's also important to make it a mounting score because, as we both know, females will ride each other. So also being able to determine some of those things as well allows us to see the really dominant females in our system, that maybe those behaviors are hidden from our eyes, because, as we well know, a lot of cow behavior occurs in the dark. It's very hard to determine what's occurring at what time. So again, those data points being automated into the software really allows us to sit there and dig into the finer points of that information and say, no, we know we have these females that are very dominant and riding each other, so we know which ones to have available if we are trying to synchronize and do any type of artificial insemination work. Or from a natural service perspective, it allows us to know which of those bulls is really getting out and doing what I paid him to do, which is an important piece of what a bull costs today.
I want to talk about the AIing and synchronizing part of this discussion too, but on the natural service side, is there more you want to discuss outside of, being able to measure those cycles and mounting scores and, getting that data? Is there anything else there?
No, I really think that kind of covers the points that really matter to a producer, understanding how to predict calving windows based upon knowing when a cow was serviced, when she stopped having her natural cycle. This is all possible because the females that were studied in this work were the same females watched over a 6-month time frame. So it's not just, we watched them for 3 cycles and then we allowed them to be bred. No, they were watched for a long time frame, and at the end of it, they were also synchronized. So we could also see the difference in natural service behavior or natural estrous behavior and artificial or synchronized estrous behavior. So both of those are definitively predictable. Now, it's important to make sure that we make this very clear. I am not predicting an exact standing heat moment. There's too many different factors that go into an exact standing heat moment. What I'm telling you is definitively this 20% of your herd has had an estrous activity on this day. And that comes with a very high confidence interval. In fact, we set the confidence interval to have to be incredibly high because we would rather tell you she may not be in heat than to tell you one that is in heat that actually wasn't. So those parameters were very definitively set by the researchers to make sure that we didn't give false positives or false negatives, either one.
Okay. Now, talk a little bit more about how ranchers can use this tag and these estrus features in a synchronized setting. Because I know my family, we synchronize everything. So share some of that information.
Absolutely. So when we're doing our preparation for synchronization, we always know there's a percentage of animals that are in that 7 to 10 day window, either side of their estrus cycle, that may or may not react. So when we know which animals are either 3 days past their cycle or 3 days from their cycle, we know that if we put a cedar and start a synchronization cycle in those females, we're actually just going to throw them off because they were about to ovulate on their own as is. So we stop putting synchronization drugs and timed AI semen in these females that have no chance of actually settling, because when we manipulate the cycle at the wrong time, we know we just set them 21 days down the road and they're going to be back in heat guaranteed. But if we know those females should be in heat within the next 3 days, we can just put a Kmart patch on them, breed them old school, and know that we can stop wasting the semen we would have otherwise wasted. And as much as I knew this all too well as a young man working for ABS when semen was $25 a straw, I can't imagine what that looks like when you're dumping $40 to $50 an animal on the ground at this point. And those genetics are too important and too powerful to go to waste, when the truth is we just want as many AI calves as we possibly can. Even if that means slightly more management, I'm sure your family would have no problem being like, no, we'll pull those 20 females aside and naturally heat detect them and breed them, and know the rest of these can be synchronized and bred, because it allows us to, again, manage the animals with better data to get better outcomes.
Those daily estrus alerts, the mounting scores. Now, you also said calving alerts. What are those?
Yes, so calving alerts are going to be behavior-based metrics that definitively predict a calving activity going on. So those will be triggered based upon the last data packet that the tag sends. So it's not going to be like the high activity or no activity where it triggers an immediate notification. It will come in the next data packet, which still allows us to know, okay, no, that animal was calving within the last 3 to 4 hours at this point, and it gives us the GPS location of that. So it either allows us to know, hey, we had a cow sneak off and she's trying to calve in this portion of the pasture, or it allows us, especially in a purebred situation, to know, no, there's 4 cows calved, and so I'm not guessing whose calf it is, because now that I can see, I know these 5 females calved and the calf proximity is pretty close to this one. I don't have to guess anymore. I again have even better data to say, no, I can match the right calf to the right cow without a lot of guesswork.
I'm thinking about on my husband's and I's operation, which is completely a commercial cow-calf operation, but March, April, when the weather can still be blizzardy and stormy, which are going to be the most likely ones that we should probably put in the barn tonight so we don't have to do it at 3 in the morning. Is that something that this could help with, or what would be the ability there?
So based upon being able to use the data backwards of knowing when they were bred, yes, absolutely. You could be using the data to do that. It's going to predict when a cow is actually demonstrating calving behavior. Now, some of our females demonstrate calving behaviors for 10 to 12 hours before they do anything, and some do for 10 to 12 minutes. So it's going to depend on the female and how efficient she is at going from 0 to 60. Some do it in a day and some do it in 20 minutes. So there's not much we're going to do for that female that goes from 0 to 60 in 20 minutes other than tell you definitively, no, she's calving at this point. But other than that, no, it's unfortunately not going to do all of it for us. There's still a human element of everything we do.
Is the algorithm different for, say, like your heifers versus your cows in any of the heat models or calving intervals or anything like that?
That's a great question. So there were both first calf virgin heifers and multi-parous cows in all of these studies. So those things have all been taken into effect. The beauty is that most of those behaviors from a true accelerometer data analysis perspective don't vary that much. Yes, the things we visualize may change slightly, but the number of times an animal lays down and stands up and spins in circles and starts to demonstrate those very definitive behaviors is not that different from virgin animals to multiparous. And so, yes, it's been taken into effect, and no, there will not be differential algorithms for them. Now, the door is wide open for any research entity who wants to pick up where we left off on those algorithms and continue to develop that. Again, because we're an open source platform, the data, the algorithms, everything is always up for somebody to want to take and continue on and make even better. And that's an opportunity that we are happy to discuss with them as far as not only the tags themselves, but also setting them up with the research collar that can actually teach the algorithms and the behaviors. And so we're happy to help anybody who wants to get involved in that, who is either a licensed veterinarian or a PhD animal scientist researcher, to continue to develop those capabilities even further.
Okay. With these 3 new features that are going to be rolling out, is there anything we haven't touched on already that you think is important for the rancher to know about them?
Yes, so along with these 3 features, Ceres Tag is also flipping our business model to be a much lower upfront cost and a subscription. So it allows people to spread out the cost of the devices. It's not all an upfront payment system. It actually now allows them to pay a tremendously cheaper upfront price and have a $5 per month cost of the data itself, which again allows the producer to spread that cost of the device out. Now they're still redeployable in every way, so the producer can use it on multiple animals in any given season. Now, if they're using it for estrus related activities, they need to remember when they redeployed the tag, because you don't want estrus behaviors from the previous female impacting the next female. So you want to make sure to give them at least a 28-day time frame to really adjust before you start making estrus related behavior decisions on an animal that's had a new device. The device itself is actually running a 14-day weighted average of those kinds of behaviors to make that estrus determination. So it's not like it's just a very short window. These are very long processes that have been thought out of how to analyze this behavior most effectively. And this is research that's been going on for a tremendous amount of time, both in beef and dairy animals around the world. And so we took all of those learnings, or the researchers themselves who developed it took all those learnings and figured out how to deploy them into this platform to make the best use case possible for the American rancher. Again, knowing that most of the softwares and technologies that exist today still require ground-based transmission of some kind, whether that's LoRaWare or any of the Bluetooth-based systems, where when this becomes purely satellite as it is, it allows for all those things to exist in places that cellular networks and ground-based infrastructure just become cost prohibitive to allowing the producer to use these values.
Well, I think that's always really exciting to hear from a rancher's perspective, that the cost of technology is switching to a business model that's going to be that less upfront cost, like you talked about, to make it more affordable to try and start with and see how it works.
Well, and it allows the producer to use the device for the same amount of time, but to spread the cost of using that device. As we know, capital is an incredibly expensive issue in today's world, especially with interest rates the way they are. So nobody wants to lay out a tremendous amount of capital up front, where it's a lot easier to stomach paying $40 a device and paying a monthly data fee than it was to pay $200 device up front. It doesn't change the cost of the device. It just changes how the producer can amortize that over time to extrapolate that value. We're also in the middle of working on some really exciting dashboard-based work that will actually put some of these metrics into software partners themselves. So instead of the software having to do any of the development, they actually just have a plug-in dashboard that's built by the Ceres Tag analytic team that takes those data points and makes them very clear. Like, no, animal A's return to cyclicity was 45 days, animal B's was 32, and here's the intake efficiency that goes with them. So does animal A eat a very small amount of feed? Okay, well, I can maybe stomach her coming into cyclicity slightly longer because she's a very low intake female, where the second one may eat a lot more. She also may come into heat faster. So we can start to make behavior-based analytic decisions on data that's just never been possible.
All right. Now, Shane, when you think about the impact that technology like this is going to have on the American beef industry, what do you see?
I think the most exciting thing that we can offer is the ability for producers to have a lot more confidence in using higher level genetic mating systems to get better outcomes. We all know AI-based calves produce a better outcome than natural service for the most part, because those bulls are just better genetics. They're better animals in general, and they have a higher propensity to produce an animal with more profit. When we can make better decisions of how to better utilize those systems and not waste those resources or not have those be cost prohibitive, because it doesn't make sense if we have 25% of our synchronization and AI structure not work, then it changes the value of how we can use those things. It also, again, allows us to better understand age verification of our calves, the ability to use that data in a system that rewards me for it. When I'm in a program that tells me that I am age and source verified, and I have every 6 hour data on those things, then I have a brand new ball game of data that's worth maybe just as much as the animal himself, because the consumer who wants the data that goes with their animal now has the ability to access that with real teeth. It's sustainability and behavior-based analytics with teeth. It's not suggestions. It's not theoretical ideas. It's really strong data that allows those animals to be better verified and better utilized, because we can go back and talk to our packer partner and say, no, these animals aren't 36-month advanced. They may show some indentation. That may be true. We don't know why that is. We should understand that from a genetic analysis perspective. But I can tell you exactly when this calf was born. And it's for a device its whole life. And I have the data to sell you that goes with it. And so it allows for the business model to stop being flipped on its head, I guess is the best way to put that.
Do you have producers who are putting tags into newborn calves, or do you see them waiting until those calves, say, come through at weaning or maybe before spring turnout?
Most of the time, producers put them on weaned animals. We do have people who put them on day olds. It really just depends on how valuable the day old is. Again, it really depends on the producer's preference. We have people who tag every animal in their system of any age, doesn't matter. And we have people that only put it in their bulls and their first calf heifers, and they cycle them just like that. And again, it's up to the producer how granular they want to get with managing their animals with better data. That determines how many devices they want to put in ears. The one thing that we always are confident in is that when producers start to see the data in a daily pattern, they become pretty entrenched in what that looks like, and they always find a new use case that they think they can make more money on. And that's the exciting piece, because they may have thought they didn't have predator problems, but they come to see that, oh, by the way, my cows are spending an awful lot of time in the middle of the night chasing off coyotes, and that's probably why my return to cyclicity isn't where I want it. And I can see those things because I start to see the high activity alerts and the slow return to cyclicity, and I can extrapolate those thoughts along with my co-op research partners or state extension service. I can start to use these partners to a lot more advantage because I have data to give them, not just assumptions. I'm not saying, hey, I think something's wrong. It's like, no, here's all the data that allows me to tell you I can see something's wrong. Can you help me interpret it? Or my software partner, can you help me interpret it? We can start to take better data to all of our partners in the supply chain and make better decisions, which is really the beauty of an open source platform, is that it just allows better data to be available where it's needed, not only in a system that tells you how to use it, but truly wherever it's most valuable. And that may be for the breed association and 2 different softwares and your local extension service along with a research university, because it's allowing all of you to work together to make cattle in your specific environment more profitable, which has just never been possible up until now.
It is very exciting for sure, like you said, to have something with teeth and not just assumptions. So Shane, all of this is incredibly exciting. But still, as a rancher, I wonder, like, how we talk about these, you talk about these algorithms for whether that's the forage intake, the daily estrus, the calving alerts, the mounting scores. What are those? How do they work? I mean, what's gone into those so that they are actually accurate to the rancher? Because so many of us are still going off that cowboy logic that has served us for generations.
That's a really great question, and I'm going to talk with my hands because it's easier to show you than it is just to talk about it. So our device is a solar-powered accelerometer with a GPS location. So it's doing every second behavior analytic measurement of allowing to see, no, an animal has their head down and they're chewing, or their head is up and they're chewing their cud, or they're drinking or chewing on the fence. And so you'll see that our data actually says grazing, drinking, resting, and ruminating. But drinking has an other classification because animals who play with their tongues mess up drinking. That's the behavior it's most definitively linked to. So when we say grazing, resting, ruminating, which are now broken apart, resting and ruminating are now definitively broken apart in the new devices, which also allows for a really important analysis. But it allows those things to then be extrapolated into a data set that is analyzed by a PhD researcher. And because we know that it takes more than just one kind of data, we also have the licensing to the world's most technologically advanced research collar. So this is an accelerometer, a gyrometer, and a magnetometer all in one. All that is to say is that I can tell you that an animal threw her head sideways, chewed on 3 different kinds of plants, and beat the crap out of her neighbor all in a 10-second period. And all of that data is broken down in every second increments, including running the pasture feed intake algorithm every 5 seconds. So when we say we want granular data on animal behavior and how they're utilizing their environment, this allows a researcher to do it. It also Bluetooths to the tag and collects the raw data from the tag. So there's actually 2 different raw data streams from every animal in every one of these studies that a researcher can go back and collaborate the data from this with the data from this with camera data or blood test data or any other type of information they want to have. So like the estrous algorithm is a great example. When they determined that an estrous behavior was determined with both of these, they were blood testing animals every time there was an estrous determination to determine if there was the proper level of prostaglandin in the bloodstream to have determined that there was an estrous activity on that time frame. So when we want to say, no, FSH has spiked here and we know there's an estrous behavior, it's because those things were actually looked at in the data And the producer can have a tremendous amount of confidence in the fact that this is more data than any researcher has ever thought about having. And it's all open source. So I'm not charging them for it. I'm not making it a game where only they get the data. I give them all their data so they can make a better decision for you as the rancher because they have better data, pure and simple.
All right. Well, I appreciate you explaining that and showing those two devices. So if you are on the audio and you want to see those, head over to YouTube and you can pop in and see what Shane was talking about as well. Now, Shane, if listeners take away one thing from today's conversation, what do you want that to be?
That understanding the reproductive behaviors of our cattle with a lot more granular detail and being able to pair that with the energetic cost of making those things occur gives us an ability to be far more profitable than we ever have been. And I'm happy to sit down with any producer who wants and talk about the unique ways that they can make a profit on it, because the big reason you'll hear us never say, well, it's an exact 5-to-1 ROI, is that that's me believing that every ranch operates in the exact same way. And you and I both know those are both very, very dangerous assumptions. What makes one producer $50 an animal in profit from the platform may make the next producer $20 an animal in profit. And so we need to sit down and have that conversation in real time and go through, know what is your normal calf loss? What is your normal weaning weight? What is your normal return to cyclicity? How much forage do your animals really eat? And can we use some different softwares to make better decisions on those things to help you maximize your stocking rate and your reproductive efficiency? Because ultimately, we need to make more pounds of beef with the same number of acres or fewer acres than we've ever had before, because we have fewer cows, we have fewer productive acres in ranching, and we need more beef than we ever have. And so helping producers to make those things occur means that we need to have a very distinct conversation of how they make money. And I'm not going to give them a ballpark, oh, this is how you make money, it's 20-to-1 ROI. Well, no, that's me making a bad assumption again. And I'm in the business of breaking assumptions, not selling them.
All right. Well, for those listening, you can find contact information for Shane and Ceres Tag down in the description, so be sure to check that out. And additionally, if you want to message me as well, you can do that and I can help point you in the right direction. Just head to my website, casualcattleconversations.com, hit the contact me form, and that'll go straight to my email, whatever you want to talk about. Shane, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, absolutely. And for the audience, please know you can see us next week at CattleCon for one of the cattle chats on the trade show floor. We are giving a chat on Tuesday evening about the launch of the reproductive platform and going through some of the example ROI math that can come with that.
All right, folks. Remember, the best way to support this podcast and all your other favorite podcasts is to leave a rating, a review, and better yet, share it with a friend who's going to find this information valuable, because podcasts still grow best by word of mouth. But with that, happy ranching.